أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جود من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
Thank you very much for the recitation of Surah Yasin. We're going to actually start with Fatiha, so you guys are welcome to help yourself to chai and tabarruk. And then in about 10 minutes, we will get started with the program. Thank you so much.
test. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Inshallah, we're going to try to get started in the next couple minutes. So if you can please grab your refreshments and then take a seat. Thank you. Okay, assalamu alaikum, everyone. We're going to get started with the program. Thank you all for coming. This is part of our Az-Zahraa monthly speaker series. And today we have what I'm hoping is a very interesting presentation by some of the youth who went on the volunteer and Ziyarat trip to Iraq with Global Kindness Foundation. I'm not going to take too much of your time talking, and so I just want to actually pass it along to our presenters today. So today we have Amir, Ali Jawad, Sayeda, and Faye, who are going to be presenting about some of their experiences on their recent trip to Iraq. So without further ado, I'll let them get started.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I'm Amir, and I'm accompanied today by Ali Jawad, Faye, and Sayeda. In tonight's session, we're gonna be sharing our experiences about our trip this past December to Iraq with Global Kindness Foundation. Before we continue, as many of us have been following and advocating for the people in Palestine over the past several months, we believe it is equally important to recognize our status as settlers on this land. So we'd like to acknowledge and thank the first people of the Hanka Minam language group on whose traditional and unceded territories we teach, learn, and live.
So a bit about GKF. Global Kindness Foundation is a not-for-profit organization that provides dental and medical care to underprivileged children in developing countries across the world. The foundation was created in 2007 by Dr. Hasnain and Sister Fatima Dewji in Vancouver, Canada. The foundation was for helping others and recognizing the necessity to help those lacking access to basic resources. They decided to begin their humanitarian trips to countries such as Iraq and India. Over time, they expanded their camps to Haiti, Tanzania, Peru, and many more. In 2010, they were recognized as an official charity and have been carrying out camps every year since. Recognizing the need for other essential medical services, they decided to expand and offer clinics for medical, optical, and audiology needs during their mission. They've even set up a permanent dental clinic in Lucknow, India to provide care to impoverished students.
The humanitarian trip this past December was extra special because they had the genius idea of bringing youth from our community along with the experience with them. This trip also included a ziyarah portion, which made it even more impactful.
So before we get into the main part of the trip where we talk about a bit about what we did and where we went on the trip, we just wanted to provide some context about the school where we volunteered. So the school we volunteered at is called Darl Zahra School, and it is located in Najaf, Iraq. So Darl Zahra, just before we talk about the school, a human rights report published in 2021 confirmed that there are approximately 5 million orphans living in Iraq. Now this number is very significant as it is equivalent to approximately 5% of all orphans worldwide. As we all know, the population of Iraq is vulnerable due to many factors, some of which include foreign interference, in the region, particularly with the 2003 invasion of Iraq, as well as the War on Terror, just to name a few. As a result, approximately 800,000 to 1 million children in Iraq are living as orphans, meaning they have lost one or both of their parents. This is where Darl Zahra School comes in, as it is an orphanage school catering to orphan children in Najaf. The school is a project of Al-Anwar and Najafiyya Foundation, which is a non-governmental organization under the support of Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi. The school today hosts 1,066 students, 925 of which are orphans. When the school began, they had only 200 students, so you can tell, based on the current number of students, how far the school has come since its establishment in 2008. So the school came about as a way for educators and community members to initiate a long-term response to combat poverty in Iraq. And so recognizing that poverty is an issue that disproportionately affects the children and families in Iraq, the idea behind the school was to fight poverty through education. In addition to poverty, the population of Iraq lacks access to clean water and medical attention, which untreated for several years leads to health complications later in life, which could have been prevented had these resources been in place for them. So in addition to providing education, there is also an on-campus clinic with a stocked pharmacy as well as experienced medical experts. And overall, the school is a very holistic initiative as it not only caters to education and ensuring that children are learning many different skills such as languages, computers, but it also provides many programs such as nutrition, food, and sports programs to ensure that the students are being well cared for overall. So this is a bit about the school that we volunteered at during the GKF camp.
Okay, so now we'll talk more about the camp itself and how our experiences were like. To give you guys a little bit of a background on how the trip actually was like, we'll run through what a typical day would look like on the trip. So it was split up into the camp portion, so that was mainly like the first week for us youth, and then the Ziyara portion for the youth as well. So on the next slide is a little bit of an overview of the days during the camp, so when we would actually go to the school and volunteer. So for those of us who are ambitious and were able to get up early, we normally started our days at around like 5 a.m. to go pray Fajr all together. And then we would sit there, pray together, and then have a little time to sit and ponder. And then around like 7 o'clock or before 7 o'clock, we'd head back to the hotel to have our breakfast. And then we'd get ready, head to the school. Once we got to the school, we would have a little bit of like a little morning meeting just to get everyone kind of situated. So our volunteer days were, I believe they were like roughly around like 8 hours, depending on the day. We'd have a break for lunch, which they fed us very delicious food, I must say. And then we'd pray and then do a little bit more volunteering, and then we'd head back to the hotel around like 5 o'clock. And then again, go pray like Maghrib Salat together. And then around 7 o'clock, we'd head back to the hotel, and that's when we'd have dinner and just have a little bit of time to socialize with our peers. So that was the first week.
And then the second week of our trip was more focused on the ziyarat aspect. So during the first week, while we volunteered, of course, we were staying in Najaf. We were staying very close to the Haram, so we were fortunate to, as Faye mentioned, be able to go pray at the Haram as well. However, once that first week was kind of over, we were blessed to be able to, focus more on the ziyarat aspect of the trip. And for that part, we were very lucky to have Sheikh Jafar and his wife, Sister Sabiha, from Toronto, join us and guide us throughout the ziyarat trip. So we began in Najaf, and we were also fortunate to visit the cities of Najaf, Kufa, Samarra, Kadmain, and Karbala. During this journey, we were fortunate to visit several different mosques, such as Masjid al-Sahla, which was, I think, a favorite amongst a lot of the group, Masjid al-Kufa, Masjid al-Hanana, and as well as the site where Kamel ibn Ziyad, the loyal companion of Imam Ali, was buried. And for a lot of us whose first time this was, or maybe second time, it was very nice for us to be able to see these places and connect with the personalities who are buried there. For example, as it is Thursday night, we usually recite Dua Kamel, so to be able to have visited the mosque where Kamel ibn Ziyad was buried, it kind of gives us a better connection, and now we actually understand more about who this personality was, as well as his loyalty to the Imam, which is, characteristics that we can also try to embody ourselves. Yes.
For the majority of the youth in Vancouver, this was a new experience, and therefore we were unaware of what to expect. Ali Jawad and I were assigned to the optometry section of the camp for the first half.
So given our limited experience, the optometry team was patient with us and ensured we knew what we were doing before we saw any students. Some of our teachings included learning how to use equipment and write prescriptions. Although it was important to stay on task and be able to help as many students as we can, we also made it a point to interact and make meaningful communication with each patient we saw. During our optometry camp, we came across a student, aged 11. While testing his eyes with the basic procedure, we realized that it required a closer look. During the process, the equipment was failing to recognize his eyes, and Amir and I, unsure of what was happening, assumed that something was wrong with the equipment. The optometry head came and attempted to test his eyes. However, we noticed that his pupils were constantly moving, which is abnormal. We learned that this was an extremely rare condition called nystagmus.
So nystagmus is an eye condition where your pupils are constantly moving, resulting in blurry vision and everything you see is always moving. This condition can be cured when you're an infant, but unfortunately he was already 11 years old and this condition was uncurable. So coming up with a solution, we provided him a special prescription that will lessen the severity of his condition.
For the optometry camp in Najaf, we were able to do 722 screenings and provide 123 prescriptions.
Okay, so Sayed and I, we were actually lucky to be in the dental portion of the camp. So we were able to work with a bunch of dentists and learned a lot about dentistry. So none of us have background on anything dental. So it was a very new experience for both of us. We both started the camp, again, very limited knowledge, but thankfully, the dentists that we were able to work with, they really walked us through the procedures and the steps and like how to perform our role correctly or to the best of our abilities. So we were dental assistants. This entailed prepping the workspace. So in between patients, we'd be sanitizing the workspace, making sure everything is ready for the next one. We'd also be getting equipment that the dentists need. So during the procedures, we'd be handing them the equipment that they needed. So yeah, we learned the procedures of, or the steps to various procedures. So like we did crowns and extractions and fillings. So that was a really fun experience, a good learning experience for sure. We also got to interact with the patients. So we would be getting them from the waiting room and then bringing them to the dental area. So the walk with the kids was a fun time. We got to really interact with them and get to know them a little bit before starting the dental procedures. But yeah, so we learned a lot, and again, we were very lucky to learn from very experienced dentists. Our dentist actually I had a fun conversation with our dentist that I kind of just want to mention. So I'm studying in health sciences, so I had a conversation with him in between our patients, and he kind of motivated me to consider dentistry as a profession. He told me one piece of advice that I think I'll take with me kind of forever, but he said not to let the amount of schooling scare you away from a certain profession. And so that kind of struck a chord with me. So yeah, that's a fun little story.
And just to add on to that, since coming back from the trip, Faye and I have had multiple discussions about potential career changes, both of us. I was particularly interested in the anesthesiologist and the sedation, because we were working in dental with sedation. So we had a bright idea that she'll become the dentist, I'll become the anesthesiologist. And we've also heard from people who have gone on these trips before that this is a common theme, that once you go on a GKF trip, you start to question your whole life and sort of reconsider, even if you're almost done your undergraduate degree. But like Faye said, never let the amount of school or work discourage you from pursuing your dreams.
I guess we should also mention that there are other parts of the camp. So it's not just dental or optical. There is an audiology part as well. There is just the medical as well. And then very important as well was the patient management and the, I forgot what the actual term was, but the people who took care of the kids after the surgery. So they also played a very important role in running the camp, basically. So, yeah. I guess I'll start with this one as well. So, like they mentioned, this trip was a first for a lot of us. So not only the GKF camp, but Zahra as well. So for me specifically, I'm a revert. So this experience was very, I can't even describe it, but prior to going on this trip, I had very little knowledge on what Iraq was like, or I had no idea what to expect. Obviously, I learned a lot from the people around me. People would tell me what to expect. I read a lot of books. But actually going there, I didn't know what to expect. But I was a little anxious. You know, I, again, didn't really know what I was getting into. But once we got there, it was definitely not what I expected. It was beautiful and so welcoming, and definitely like a place that I would love to visit again. So yeah, again, as in terms of like the Zahra part, like I converted last year, so this trip kind of was an amazing way for me to end the year, because I converted in the beginning of the year and then ended the year off with Zahra. So I kind of even describe how amazing that was for me. Yeah, it was just, my highlights of the trip were, again, going to pray Fajr every morning at the harams with all of my friends. Hello? Okay. And then actually starting the year off with my friends again, we actually started 2024 off at the Imam Ali's Haram, which was really nice. So I sat there with my friends and Sister Sabiha. That was an amazing experience as well. And one of my favorite places was Masjid as-Sala as well. So that's a place where I felt like I really connected. I can't even describe, I'm really bad at describing the way I feel, but it was an indescribable feeling for sure, an experience.
Okay, moving on to the conclusion and key takeaways. The main takeaway I got from this trip was the ability to become more independent. As this was the first trip I went on without my parents, so I didn't have my mom to make my bed for me. I had to ensure that I was taking care of myself while simultaneously staying on task. So I'd do little things like, if I knew I had to be up early the next day, I would ensure I went to bed at a good time. So just little things to make the trip go smoothly.
Sorry guys, technical problems. Okay, so just to end off, I think one thing that we maybe did not mention is that despite having a lovely trip, a lot of us came on this trip soon after exams, and consequently we were a little bit sleep deprived, and many of us became sick on the trip. That being said, it was, I think looking back on it, it really added to the experience, because I don't know about you guys, but I've never been sick with 3 of my closest friends in a hotel room for 3 weeks. So it was quite the experience. But jokes aside, despite being, physically sick and tired at times during part of the trip, I think all of us can agree that we came back from this trip feeling very spiritually rejuvenated and uplifted. Like Faye said, it was a beautiful way to transition from a very difficult year, 2023, into 2024. And there are definitely like a lot more stories and a lot of big moments and memories that we have, but I think what made the trip very special was just some of those little moments and some of the quiet time that we had during the trip. For example, soon after checking into our hotel in Karbala, it was sunset, and soon after that we heard the adhan from our hotel room, which was just a beautiful thing. And just walking in the streets, hearing the Quran playing, and just a lot of small moments that we usually don't get to appreciate with the busyness of everyday life over here. We were able to meet a lot of really great people and strengthen the connections with the people who we went with. We were fortunate to meet and interact and work with a lot of very cool professionals, and as well as, of course, the biggest blessing of all was to be able to visit our imams and their companions. It was, I think, a much-needed break from the busyness of the lives we all have here, and I'm very grateful to everyone who was part of the organizing trip and everyone who participated on the trip, and basically everyone who just made it happen.
Okay, so I have another fun little story. I kind of ramble a lot, but as I had a theme for this trip, or kind of, I guess the theme came up during the trip, but as I reflected on the trip itself, this word was basically what I would say to describe it. So when I was there, I was taught the word Hadiyah, and I was told that this means gift. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not what it means. But I was told that that's what it means. So this theme, I guess, really came up. It's kind of funny, but we were shopping. So us girls, we were shopping. We were walking around looking for hijab stores, right? So we went to this one hijab store, and all of us, I think there was 10 of us. We were just looking for different colored hijabs, different kinds, different styles and stuff. And I felt a little overwhelmed, so I actually did not end up buying one. I kind of just stood on the side and watched everyone buy all of their hijabs. And as we were leaving, the store owner noticed that I didn't have a bag. So as we were walking out the door, heading back to the hotel, he calls me over and he says, "You, come here." And I was so confused because I was like, why? Did I do something wrong? And so everyone was like, "Faye, just go, just go." So I went back, and he grabs a bag and grabs a hijab from the rack, and he stuffs it in the bag, and he hands it to me, and he says, "Hadiyah." And I was like, oh, really? And I was just so shocked, because I was like, I was not expecting it. And that really touched my heart. And after that, I really reflected on it, and this whole trip for me felt like such a gift. So that's why I think that was the theme for this trip for me. It was, yeah, I did not expect to go on this trip, and somehow I ended up going on the trip, and it was probably one of the best things that happened to me so far. And but aside from the material gain, so aside from getting the free hijab, we also got a bunch of free stones that they give out. Yeah, I forgot what it's called. Darl Zahra. We got a bunch of those. But yeah, aside from the material gains, I think I left this trip with more than I came with. And so I want to touch upon the importance of volunteering. So volunteering is a very fulfilling thing, I'm sure we all know. And aside from learning dentistry and how to be a dental assistant, and aside from that experience, I got to see the world from a completely different point of view from what, I kind of just a completely different point of view from what I grew up with. And that to me was, I can't even describe how lucky and blessed I feel to have experienced that. So thank you to Fatima Auntie and Hasnain Uncle. Thank you for making this all happen and organizing everything for us. And everyone else who was involved in organizing, we all really appreciate it. Thank you.
So for me, I think this trip allowed me the opportunity to reflect on how privileged we are to have such easy access to basic needs, and which so many are deprived of. I learned to be more grateful for the blessings that we have and how we should give back in any way we can. Despite having little to no experience, we were able to make a meaningful impact on so many. Having the opportunity to go on ziyarat alongside the camp was also such a fulfilling experience. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Hasnain Uncle, Fatima Auntie, Sheikh Jaffer, Sister Sabiha, the organizers and mentors for a trip that we will always cherish. Thank you for listening.
I just really wanted to thank the youth again here for such a wonderful presentation. I know they were all dealing with really busy schedules right now with school and such, and so it's great that they were able to put something so wonderful together. I did just want to call up Hussein Uncle now to just share a couple words, and then we'll have an opportunity to ask the youth any further questions, or if anyone wants to hear any other stories or any other experiences about their trip. So yeah, Hussein Uncle.
Assalamu alaikum. What a wonderful presentation. It was so nice to hear a different perspective of what they were seeing during the camp and during the Ziyarat trip. This was an amazing experience for GKF. This was the first time we had youth like this come with us, and they were it made the camp extremely special. These youth brought a lot of energy into the camp, etc. And they mentioned that they had a small impact on what they did. Just to give you an idea, this last GKF trip we did in December, if that work had been done in Canada, it would have been $1.1 million worth of work. That's how much work treatment we provided. Someone mentioned that there was 170 prescriptions given out for glasses. Actually, we made those glasses and delivered them as well. It wasn't just a prescription that we gave. So these people actually ended up with glasses as well. Similarly, for the dental, a lot of treatment was provided. I would love Faith to become a dentist, and he said to become a anesthesiologist. We could use them on our next GKF trip or whenever they're graduated. It would be really, really nice. Just on that note, to give you another little story, about 7, 8 years ago, we had an engineering student come with us. He was in his 4th year of engineering in Houston, Texas. He came, he volunteered at the camp. He went back, he switched to dentistry, and he graduated 2 years ago. He's quit engineering, totally. So, you know what? It can be a life-changing experience, and there's been a number of cases like that. Not that that's the objective of the camp, by the way. We are there to serve people. We're always looking for volunteers. I noticed in our audience we have a volunteer from Toronto who is helping out in our recovery team and in other parts of the camp as well. So we have volunteers of all ages coming. So if any of you want to volunteer for our next trip, April is full, December next year, again, we're going to Iraq. We would love to have you on board. Anybody who says, what am I going to do? There's a job for everybody. We will find you a spot where you can contribute to the best of your ability. For those of youth who are out there who haven't been on a GKF trip, we would love for you to come on a GKF trip. We love to have youth on board. They are the backbone of any volunteering camp. So please, 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 if you have the time and the energy to come, we really want you on board. December, I'm not sure what the dates are exactly. It's towards the end of during Christmas time and into New Year. That's probably the best time for a lot of you. Hopefully your exams will be over and you'll be out of school and maybe you'll be able to help out. Want to give a quick shout out to the mentors who were on this trip that helped take care of the youth. They did a wonderful job, and kudos to them. The other thing I learned about this youth, and you know, there is a hadith out there that if you really want to get to know people, you have to do one of three things. You either have to marry them, go into business with them, or travel with them. And I got to travel with these youth during the humanitarian camp as well as during the Ziyarat camp. And I can tell you, Vancouver is blessed with the youth we have. They are a wonderful group of individuals. And there was a number of occasions when I look back and think, wow, kudos to the parents, kudos to the community. We have raised some really, really wonderful children here. They're not really children anymore, they're youth. And hopefully they will be the future of this community. And looking at them, I think this community has a good future. So kudos to them, kudos to the parents. Let's encourage them to get involved even more, not just in GKF, but in other camps as well, in other volunteering activities. We could use them in the center here. We can use them for other things as well. Let me see, was I supposed to say anything more? That's about it. I'll leave it up to you guys to ask all the questions. One more thing that I think was highlighted, we had a debriefing at the end of the camp. And the one thing that came out from a number of youth was how fortunate they were to visit Ayatollah Sistani and how spiritual that experience was. He is getting frail now. We only were allowed to take 15 of the youth to visit him. But those 14 or 15 youth that got to go, I think for them it was a wonderful experience. You might want to ask them about that in your question and answers. I'll leave it to you guys now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hussein Akal, for sharing those words. Now we have the opportunity, if the audience has any questions or want to ask anything else about any of the youth's experiences or anything like that, the floor is open for that.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm here today by fate. I live in Toronto, and if you had asked me 2 weeks ago that I will be in Vancouver today, I would have said impossible. But whatever it is, it has brought us here, and my wife was very happy that this was happening today because she was with you people for this trip. And what I wanted to share with you, she in her humbleness will not share it, so I will share it with you, is that it is so true that many of the things that we get here, we take it for granted, totally granted. We don't realize the problems or the issues that the people go through there. Now, in their camp, she was in the I camp, and a child came, I don't know, whatever year he was, 5, 6, 7, whatever it was, and he could not see the board. Okay, so I don't know how he was going to school for all these years. And when they examined, all that was, he had a very high number. So as soon as optometrist had checked him and gave him the glasses, he was able to see the board and be able to work. Now, can you imagine how many years went through without him being able to see? So I don't know how he was able to study. As somebody here related that in an 11-year-old boy, if he had got that treatment earlier, today he would be seeing. So there are a lot of things that we have here that we take it for granted, you know. But if we take the time to reflect upon it when we have the time, we will realize we should be so much thankful to Allah for whatever we have. We have little things go wrong and we become, you know, upset and why is this happening to me? But if you look at the other side, then we will realize the beautiful things that we have. And thank you very much for sharing your experiences. It is really, you know, eye-opening, and thanks again. I hope you have, again, opportunities to do more of this. Thanks a lot. Sorry if I've taken your time, but I needed to say that. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is more of a comment than a question. I'd like to thank again Hasnain and Fatima. As from a parent perspective, you guys took on a huge responsibility and a leap of faith to take a group of young people so far away. That's not easy. And thank you for your meticulous planning, but more than that, your heart. You gave these children an experience of a lifetime that they will never forget, and it's going to be, life transforming. So thank you. I know there was probably, occasions where it's a huge responsibility, but inshallah, the impact that we see and heard this evening from just the 4 youth that were there from the larger group, inshallah, will continue to inspire Hasnain and Fatima and this entire community to continue to trust in our children and to give them the opportunities so that they will continue to be the leaders that we want in the future, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I'll ask a question actually this time. It was mentioned earlier that some of you got to visit Ayatollah Sistani. I'm just wondering, for those of you that may have had that opportunity, what did he say? What were your impressions? Was there anything that stuck with you? And is there anything you can share with us? Thank you.
Meeting Ayatollah Sistani was a very cool experience. The main thing that I remember was how long it took to get in. So all the security procedures before, which was like the main part, and the 5 minutes that we got to spend with him, it wasn't really the talking that stood out to me, but at the end we got to shake his hand, which was really a cool experience. But I'm just impressed that he sees so many people throughout the day, even though at such an old age. So that's what really stuck out to me the most.
Assalamu alaikum. So I know Hasnain for a long time. He was my dentist also for so many years. So this time my grandchildren, they were volunteers in this group, and they were so happy on that one. Years ago, my son was also a volunteer in Hasnain's group. So I saw the difference it made in the experience they gave us and told us about it. I would encourage more youngsters, other grandchildren to go with this group, because they learned difference about living in Canada and in the country like Iraq. I also happened to meet this time in Dar es Salaam the person who has built the school. Hasnain knows him, Ghulam Bhai Bhimani, such a noble and such a modest person. He wouldn't say anything, and he's the one who built this school over there. And it was a pleasure to meet him on that one. So just want to share my experience. Thank you, Hasnain.
Thank you, Hashan Uncle. On that note about the school, just so you know, those kids are all sponsored. It's, I believe, $30 a month sponsorship for those kids. So if you're willing, if you're able to do that, it is a good thing to do. All these kids, all these 1,066 kids, all of them need sponsorship. Some of them have graduated, some of them need sponsorship for university as well. Just to give you an idea, they get 2 meals a day there as well. So all 1,000 get breakfast and lunch there as well. And for some of them, that's probably the only meals that they're getting. So again, if you're able to, please think about sponsoring one of these kids. It is really heartwarming when you see the progress these kids have made. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you to all my fellow travelers, as I also was able to go on this trip and have appreciated it so much. I did notice that throughout our conversation here today, that a lot of the conversation surrounded how the impact on the children might have been. But I was just wondering if you would mind sharing any personal interactions or stories you, as some of the youth that went on the trip, had with some of the children throughout your experience through the camp.
Okay, so for me, I don't really know much Arabic, so quite frankly, I couldn't really talk to the kids. But in their few interactions, like these kids were something about just the way that they carried themselves really kind of impacted me. Like my observation on these kids was that they were all so happy. Like they're all so happy to see us. When we saw them, like they're all smiley and happy. And another thing is that I observed how they can like advocate for themselves. Like they were able to tell us, oh, this is what I'm feeling, or this is something that I think is wrong, or something. You know, like they were just able to like be their own advocates. And I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but here I feel like I don't really see that. But these kids were, I don't know, something about the way they carried themselves was just different and interesting for me to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, even though we weren't able to communicate extensively using our words, like, I felt like we were still able to say a lot of things and hear a lot of things from them without actually using verbal language communication, which was quite interesting. In addition to that, one moment that stood out to me was actually towards the end of the camp. So actually, I was able to visit this school once before in 2018 when I went for ziyarat with my family. And at that time, we visited the school, and I remember a girl who I met at the time. And of course, like coming back this year, I thought I remembered her from that time. And just as we were wrapping up the day, one of our last patients came in, and I recognized her. And it was the same girl that I had met several years ago. And we actually were able to perform a dental procedure on her. Thankfully, this one was not with sedation, and it was one of the only ones we did with no sedation. So that was very nice to be able to meet this girl again several years later and to not have to put her under sedation. Any more questions? You guys can ask anything, like, don't be shy.
We're open to answering anything.
Okay, we have time for maybe 2 more questions, and then we have to wrap up.
Assalamu alaikum. Just a question I was thinking of recently. When you looked at the photos I saw, and Elijah, while you talked about this, you kind of worked and you had a specific role that you were given. Do you feel like you got a lot of variety in terms of being able to try different things and work with different people, or were you for the most part working within your group? Also, really appreciate that you guys shared a little bit of your stories. It was a really good presentation.
No, I did get a lot of variety, actually. They were very inclusive when I went, and Ali Jawad, that was actually the optometrist's head's name, so he taught me and Amr about everything, all the different ways to use the machines and everything, and he didn't just leave us to the basic thing. He helped us build on it. So, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
was really very nice to hear all you guys went to visit the imams and all. I was wondering, did any one of you prayed for the community?
Of course, of course.
Are you just saying it or you did? Yeah.
All right, we're gonna wrap up the presentation there. Again, I really want to thank the youth for putting this together and sharing and hopefully inspiring all of us. And I also wanted to thank all of you for coming out tonight and participating in this. We just have a couple announcements. So one, for those of you who have started to notice events like this kind of popping up, especially with the Palestine ones that we had over the last couple months, this is kind of the beginning of our Az-Zahraa monthly speaker series. And so the purpose of this is to kind of create programming that's relevant, engaging, and socially conscious that all of us can participate in. And so inshallah, we'll be doing monthly programs. So on one of the Thursdays each month, we are taking a brief hiatus for Ramadan, but hopefully we'll get back to it in April. And yeah, again, if anyone has any ideas for future programs, if anyone has any feedback about ones that we've had in the past, or if anyone wants to get involved with either emceeing or even speaking at one of these programs, please reach out to either myself, Amir Sharif, or Asya. And yeah, I hope to see you all soon, and please look out for some very exciting events happening in the next few months. And I'm just going to pass the mic along to Asya.
I just have one last announcement before we end for today. If we can switch the screen back to the HDMI. Okay, that's fine. That's not going to work, but I'll just say it then. So as you know, the Olive Branch Market for Palestine is coming up this Sunday, March 3rd. We really hope to see, oh, there it is. We hope to see everyone there. It's going to be after Madrasa from 2 to 6 p.m. In case you haven't kind of seen this poster going around, we have some exciting things planned. There's going to be over 25 vendors selling food, drinks, products, services, including a hairstylist that's coming for the women. We're going to have a kids corner with a bouncy castle, face painting, carnival games, photo booth, ping pong tournament, and more. And we also have raffles taking place throughout, prizes. And the amazing part about this event is that all the proceeds are going to Nasimco Palestine Relief. So it's a great chance to come together as a community, support local vendors, while also raising money for Palestine. The event is taking place in the gymnasium, as well as a kids zone in the Imam Bara, and it's open for all men and women. And yeah, we hope to see everybody there. Thank you so much.
We're just going to conclude the program with ziyarat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي الصلاة والسلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان الأمان 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 عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل مخرجك وظهورك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.